Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to look at a US Senate election for 2020. So we've already done a presidential one with Biden against Trump, and now we're going to look at what I think will happen in the Senate based on that prediction. So we'll start with the safe states for each party. So for the Democrats, we have Delaware, Illinois, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Oregon, Rhode Island, and I believe Virginia will be safe. Mark Warner's plus 19 approval, and the state is very much trending for the Democrats on a presidential level as well. And then for the Republicans, I think Alaska will be safe. Don Sullivan is up by 10 in his approval. So yeah, I think that'll be very safe. I think Arkansas, Idaho, Louisiana, Mississippi. Cindy Hyde-Smith is up 10. We had a poll from Mississippi showing that. Nebraska, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, West Virginia, and finally Wyoming were all safe for the Republicans. So we're at 42 apiece. Likely states for the Democrats, I think Minnesota will be likely. Tina Smith, pretty popular incumbent, plus 13 approval rating, solid on a presidential level, especially with the influence of people like Amy Klobuchar endorsing Joe Biden. So I think Tina Smith will win that pretty comfortably. New Hampshire, Jean Shaheen, I believe, will win it by a likely margin, plus 15 approval rating. And again, similar, I think it will probably end up going to the Democrats in the presidential level due to Trump's unpopularity in the state. New Mexico, I think, will go likely for the Democrats. I would say it would be safe if it wasn't for the fact that there's not an incumbent in the state, so I think it's solid presidentially, and the vague polling data that we've had a very comfortable win for the Democrats, plus things like plus 19. Colorado, I think, will actually go likely, despite this being Cory Gardner's seat for the Republicans. I do think this will flip in favour of the Democrats. He's an unpopular senator, minus 3 approval. Polls have shown Hickenlooper up by up to 13 points. I don't think he will win by such a huge margin, but I do think it will be comfortably over 5%, to put it in the likely margin. Likely for the Republicans now, I think Texas will be likely. I don't think it will be like 2018, where you had a less popular senator like Ted Cruz go up against O'Rourke, who fought a really solid campaign, and he put it within kind of 2%. I think Cornyn he's a more popular senator than Ted Cruz. The Democrats really don't have any real challengers, unlike O'Rourke. Cornyn's approval rating plus 19. So I think Texas will be likely. I think Kentucky will be likely, despite Mitch McConnell's pretty hideous unpopularity, minus 13 in his approval. He's just floating above the kind of 1%, 2%, 3% mark in polling data against Amy McGrath. But I think, considering how solid the state is on a presidential level, I think Donald Trump will pull McConnell to the victory. I'm in a toss-up whether to put Kentucky as lean, purely because of how unpopular McConnell actually is. I think I will actually. So that will actually leave that as lean. We'll go back to other likely Republican states first, before moving to other lean Republican states. I think Georgia's Senate election, the non-special one, will be likely. We don't really have a very well-known Democrat running there. It is trending the Democrats in general, the state, but I think the approval rating of the current senator there is he's plus 23 points. He's plus kind of between 10 and 15 in polling. I do think it will narrow down a bit when it comes to November, but I do still think that it will go to them in the likely column. I think in terms of other lean Republican states, so we've already got Kentucky. I think Kansas will go lean. Pat Roberts is retiring, and he wasn't the most popular senator, only +2 in their approval. Pretty close polling data there we've seen, but the fact of how solid it is on a presidential level, I do think Trump will carry that pretty near to the 5% mark. I don't think it will be nearer like 2%. I think it will be closer to likely than tilt. And then Georgia's special election, I also think will go lean. I think it won't be as big a margin as the at-large election, purely because as the main election, purely because we don't have an incumbent there. The Johnny Isaacson resigned as the senator, so I do think it will get a bit closer. But in general, similar to the state of Georgia as a whole, I do think while it's leaning more Democratic as time passes, I do think it will stay for the Republicans. Alabama, I think, will go lean. Although Doug Jones, a Democrat, actually holds a seat right now, it doesn't look like a good picture for him. I think, firstly, Trump's popularity in the state should probably carry him through, should probably carry Jeff Sessions or Tuberville through. So we've got that, and then we've also got Doug Jones is actually quite approved, 41 to 35, so +6. However, polling again is very much against Doug Jones. He's been down between 7 and down between 5 and 13, with against Jeff Sessions, and then Tuberville pretty similar numbers, between 5 and 10. So I do think Alabama will go in the lean margin for the Republicans. In terms of lean Democratic seats, I think firstly Michigan will go lean. Peters has been up 7 and 6 in the last 2 polls respectively. He's a pretty popular senator, +8 in his approval. I think it's a possible presidential flip, possibly a probable presidential flip to Joe Biden. So I do think Democrats will carry Michigan by probably around 3 or 4% in the Senate. I do think it'll be a bit closer on the presidential level, but I do think the Senate will be a bit of a wider margin. And then secondly, Arizona, I believe, will go lean. So McSally, obviously for the Republicans, does hold this right now. She was appointed, she wasn't elected. She lost in 2018 by about 2.5 points to Sinema, who's a pretty centrist Democrat. Mark Kelly's probably quite similar to her. He's been up in every poll, at least in every recent poll, +9, +3, +12, +6, +7 in the most recent polls. It's leaning to the Democrats as time goes by anyway, on a wider level, on a presidential level. I would project it to go to them by probably about 4 points, actually. So a pretty wide margin. And then yes, that's it for lean Democrats. Another lean Republican state, I do believe, will be Iowa. However, Joni Ernst, who's the incumbent for the Republicans, she's actually pretty disapproved of. She's so -5 is her approval rating, actually. But I think Iowa being a very it has a lot of Trump appeal in the state, and Joni Ernst has been up between kind of 6 and 7 points in the last polls over Greenfield, so I do think that she will carry it still. And then finally we've got Montana, North Carolina and Maine. I do believe that Montana will tilt to the Republicans. I think it will be probably just under 2%. So we have Steve Daines against Steve Bullock. Bullock is a pretty popular Democrat in Montana, and he's very well known. However, he's been down 9% in one particular poll, and then he was level with Daines in another. Daines' approval rating is plus 16, so it's pretty. He's a pretty positive. He's a pretty well liked senator there, and I think due to the solid presidential level, I do think that Montana will go to Steve Daines in the Senate seat, and I do believe that the Republicans will win it probably by just under 2%, so a tilt margin. And then the last two states, we're going to go to Maine. I do think Maine will ever so slightly tilt to the Democrats. Susan Collins was originally well up in polling. Her approval has kind of crashed completely. She's currently the most disapproved senator in the whole of the US, minus 10. Gideon's been up +4 and +1 in recent polls. All the signs are pointing to it trending to the Democrats. In the presidential level as well, obviously Hillary Clinton just about won it. I do think Biden will win it by a wider margin. So I do think the Senate race will favour them ever so slightly. I think we're looking at probably around 1% here. It could tilt the other way, but that's what I've got it at as the moment. And then finally, North Carolina. This is almost impossible to call. However, I do think it will, as it stands, I do think it will just about tilt to the Republicans. Tom Tillis is not approved of senator, -3. Cunningham has been up +7 in one poll. Tillis has been up 4 in another. I think solely, I've purely called this down to the presidential level. I do think Trump will win here. I do think Trump will beat Biden here, albeit by a small margin, but I do think he'll win. So I do think he will carry Tillis over the finishing line, but only ever so slightly. I think the polls go both ways. Tillis isn't a very well-liked senator there, but as it stands, I've got the Trump factor carrying him just about over the line, even despite things like the African-American vote that will very likely come out for Biden and therefore down ballot for the Democrats in the Senate as well. So that is my prediction as of now, which is April. I'll probably do another one of these as we get a bit closer to November to see how it changes, but that's what I've got it at the moment. The Republicans at 51 and the Democrats at 49. So thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed.